Today, we're at Winding Road Classics. You're watching Offbeat Motors. Do all the subscribing and stuff like you do if you like this video. But anyway, this is a 1948 Pontiac Torpedo four-door sedan. And the Torpedo is the body style. They also made a streamlined one that's got a lot more fastback look on it. We can show you that in a little bit. And this particular one is a silver streak. That's a trim level. The silver streak had either the 6-cylinder or the 8-cylinder. This one's got the 6. It's a 239 cubic inch engine. It's got the Hydromatic transmission. It was the first year of the Hydromatic, and it was such a popular option. They ended up selling about 70% of the cars, both 6s and 8s, with the Hydromatic. I don't know if it was the first fully automatic, but it was one of the first successful ones, and went all the way through the 50s for GM. This particular car, it's cream and Aggie red right now, maroon, but it originally was oyster gray and light blue metallic, or blue lake metallic. Did some research on the data plate, finally figured all that out. So the engine is a flathead 6. We'll show you the engine compartment better later. It originally had 93 horsepower at 3,400 RPM. All the charts and everything in the book go up to about 4,000 RPM. So that's red line. They didn't expect you to run it any higher than that. It had 186 pound-feet of torque at 1,200 RPM. So it was, you know, all low speed stuff. It has a 4.3 to 1 rear end ratio. Of course, roads in the late 40s were not that great. Interstate system started in 1952 under Eisenhower. So before that, the average speed was probably about 45 that you could actually travel anyway. Curb weight, 3,520 pounds. Main point of this video, we're going to go through a bunch of things that we need to talk about. The car's been sitting for at least 15, probably 20 years. It's an older restoration. The guy that brought it in is about 18 or 19 years old, and it's his grandma's. So it used to drive and run. It was a wonderful little round town car, but it just has been sitting in a barn. So it's a barn find that's been in the family for a long time. Before you go to starting any old engine that's been sitting that long, you need to do quite a few checks so you don't ruin stuff. And safety things, which we don't need today, but fire extinguisher, maybe a bucket of water, and you want to put the car up on jack stands or on a lift, so in case the transmission is locked up, you don't just shoot it all over the shop when you start cranking it. That would be more important if it had a clutch, because a lot of times the clutch plate will stick to the flywheel with rust, and the car will move when you try to start it. But we're going to put it up on the lift, so we won't have to worry about that. One of the big things, checking the fluids, but really we're going to drain the oil, and that way we can verify whether there's any water in it, gas, sludge, whatever. If it's reasonably clean looking, we'll just put new oil in it and go with that. I'm going to do that probably later today. Water, we know we have a small water leak on the back of the water pump. We can see it coming out of the inside of the pulley. Not sure how big a deal that is right yet, and for starting it for a short run, it's not going to hurt anyway. As long as we make sure there's water in the tank, it'll move. We'll verify that the pump is free, flowing all the way around later, you know, actually moving and not grinding internally. We found in the trunk some bearings, timing chain, timing gears. So at some point this engine's been gone through. The ones in the trunk were used, not brand new, but they had old NOS boxes and everything. It's pretty cool. After checking the fluids, and that's the main two fluids, we'll check the transmission fluid too. That's not critical to get the engine started. But then we'll pull the spark plugs. We have a borescope. It's not the greatest quality, but we'll try to get a picture of what's inside of there. And it's a flathead, so we should be able to see at least one of the valves through the spark plug hole. And then we can put some Marvel Mystery Oil or your favorite prep lubricant. A lot of people use ATF and diesel, ATF and acetone if it's rusty. What else?
Croyle. It's called Croyle.
Yeah, Conroe is a nice one. It's a little expensive, but it's a very good, it seeps past everything. It's some good stuff. I've used it. But I've got
Stinks.
Marvel Mystery Oil. And we'll do that and let it sit for a couple of days. I'll get the spark plugs pulled and do that this afternoon too. This car is going to get a 12-volt conversion. The owner started it. They put a Pertronics in the distributor, and we're going to verify that it was installed correctly. There's just one little measurement. It's like a 30 thousandths gap between the magnetic coil ring and the pickup. That's super easy. If it's right, it's right. Pertronics is a good thing. We've used them before. They put new spark plug wires on, and the coil needs to be mounted, which came with the Pertronics. But all that's different, and then we will wire the engine separately from the car because we haven't changed light bulbs, and we'll talk about 12-volt conversions in a different video. But wiring the engine to run is this one doesn't have a starter solenoid, so we'll be able to put the battery straight to there to the starter. It's got a mechanical solenoid with a big foot pedal. Pretty cool. Pretty common on older GM products especially. And then we'll put a switch to the coil, put all the negatives on, and that should allow us to crank the motor. And so after we've changed the oil, put the Marvel Mystery Oil in the cylinders, then we could actually hand crank first and try to get make sure there's no valves stuck once we get a couple of rotations. And then if that's all free, then we can crank it with the starter with no spark or ignition or anything hooked up. And that'll let us build oil pressure, which we can check with we'll put a standalone gauge out here for oil pressure. We'll put a standalone gauge out here for water temperature for later on when we do start it up. The carburetor, I know y'all were wondering about that. It is old, it is dusty, it is not stuck, thank goodness. It's a single barrel Carter WA1. There's a tag on it that I can't quite read the numbers on, but I see a 7 on it, and on one of the possible carburetors for this motor, it was like a 437.
Let me
So
get a picture of it.
ordered that kit, and that's what I'm going to rebuild it. You can see down in it that it's dusty and dry, and then one of the gaskets at this level is actually shrunk and pulled into the bore. So it needs rebuilt, and that'll let us visually inspect the intake chamber, make sure there's no rat's nest or mice or squirrel nuts or whatever else in there, because they love to get in here. And this was open, did not have an air cleaner on it. So if you store old vehicles and you know it's going to be there a while, lock it all down tight. It's hard to keep squirrels and rats out of cars. But everything else is pretty good. We'll rebuild the carburetor, and then after we make sure it turns free by hand, and then it turns free and builds pressure, then we can start putting the gas back on, the carburetor and the gas system. There's a fuel pump down there. We're not going to use whatever might be in the tank. We'll put a separate little tank on the side and just run a hose to the pump. And that way we know we got fresh, clean grass all the way up. Because whatever's in the tank is not good. I don't care how long. If it's been sitting there more than 6 months, it's bad. So wire separate. If we get oil pressure with no fatal noises, we'll gap the spark plugs. I've got the gap written down here. It's 0.025. Spark plug wires in correct order, which it's on the side of the block. And I happen to have a motor's manual from the early 50s that had all the specifications for this car and this engine. Wonderful. If you work on old cars, buy old books at the swap meets, because they really will help. Sometimes better than what you can find on the internet. And then at that point, we'll make sure all our safety stuff is in place. We'll get somebody to push the button inside, probably my wife, a couple of people outside watching. Anytime you do an old startup like this, you want to have somebody watching that knows what's going on, because you want to look for steam shooting out of places it shouldn't be, oil squirting out of places that it shouldn't be, or huge drips. You're going to get some drips, you're going to get some smoke. But between Ward and I, we know what to look for. We'll have one person on one side with the switch to turn it off, because we'll have a switch on the distributor wire that'll be equivalent to what the key switch would be. And then we'll have somebody on the carburetor to play like they're the choke and the throttle man, and then we can see if it fires up. That won't be today. We're going to take everything slow and easy and see if this whole thing will start back up. And then we'll do other checks on transmission, rear end. The brakes are shot, just so you'll know it's not driving anywhere until we go through the brakes entirely. And we'll do little short videos on all that stuff. This is an overall a really nice car. It's been restored. It's got a beautiful interior. We can walk around in a minute and show all that just to end this video. Only other thing, it was really dusty, and so I did some quick waterless wash. You don't want to put fender covers on when there's a lot of dust. You'll grind that dust into the paint. So I've already wiped it off pretty good. You'll see a little bit of streaks, but it's reasonably clean with just that spray waterless wash stuff. And then we can protect our customers' cars. You know, if it's old rusty beater, you don't care so much, but this one's got a nice enough paint job. And that's about it, except for maybe a walk around, look at some of the stuff inside. All right, back with the 48 Pontiac. We're just going to do an overall, like features of the car, different things you may not have seen before, because it's 72 or 3 years old, and we don't make motors like this anymore, and a lot of stuff. We'll point out the differences. But anyway, we showed you the carburetor in the other video. Single barrel carburetor, does have automatic choke. Exhaust and intake are all they're not a single casting, but they're right on top of each other. You can see how it all comes together. Single exhaust. This is a flathead. You're used to seeing things with a valve cover. You take the valve cover off, you got rocker arms. We're not going to get into this one, but the valves are under this crack layer here. So the head has some water flow jackets in it and holds the spark plugs and has the combustion chambers, and that's about it. And so water flows in, or out actually, up to here. Everything's very simple. It's an inline 6, and this car was built to take an inline 8, so it probably would have had a different shroud, and then the fan would have been up here. Just had 2 more cylinders right here, and you can see there's just enough room in the back. It probably set back just a little bit. That big tube in the middle brings fresh air into the heater. Big old horns. Don't know if they work yet, but we're going to do a conversion. We'll figure it out. Washer bottle to spray fluid into for the windshield squirters. Vacuum operated, not sure, probably switched through the original vacuum motor somehow. So anyway, that's a vacuum tube, water tube, and then this is vacuum from the engine into the cabin to feed all that. That's a heater hose coming out of the cabin. Both of these. And the heater hose, you can see it goes over and down. It's going back to the transmission for transmission cooling. Nowadays you would see...
Yeah, it's a little dark.
Huh?
It's a little dark. They probably can't see it. Yeah.
Nowadays transmission cooler would be in the radiator. So back then you just took the radiator fluid to the transmission. So on that side, this is the starter button. Inside it's spring loaded. There's a big old button on the floor above the accelerator. So it pushes that, and it contacts down there. That's the solenoid, the switch. And so when it pushes down there, it takes power here into the starter motor, throws the Bendix in, starts the car. You won't see anything like that nowadays, but it's pretty simple. Some of this monkey motion up here, when you push the starter, that's running the accelerator pump, back over to the carburetor. And some of the other, it's telling the hydromatic transmission something. I'm not sure what that linkage does, but it's all there, and there's adjustments for it, and it's all in the book. There's the little distributor. Very simple, vacuum advance. This originally would have had a generator, which would have been about this long. The conversion kit that the people bought already came with an alternator and an extra bracket. It's not tight yet. That's one of the things we got to do, figure it all out, make sure the belt's lined up, wire it. The battery, look straight downward, was long and skinny. It was about 18 inches long, 4 or 5 inches wide, and it sat on that tray down there. 6-volt battery. And so we're probably going to put the battery kind of in the same spot, but it'll be a 12-volt battery. So we'll have to build a bracket and a stand. That was originally voltage regulator for the generator. Not needed now, but we'll leave it in place so we don't have a hole on the firewall. I'm pretty sure the car got rewired 30 years ago. So the wiring is still in good shape. These are not original wires. They're too new.
But they are the cloth.
They are. They did use the cloth covered wires.
And this is what happens.
Yeah, that's an older one.
This is old age. Got bare wire there. Isn't there? They added new wire, which is cloth, like the originals would have been. So, and it needs a new ground cable.
Yeah, that's crunchy and
that's kind of bad.
Ripped.
We'll fix that.
Car was negative ground from the factory. Some other cars, especially Mopar products, were positive ground when they were 6-volt.
Get an overview of the front. Ooh, before I fall down, break something.
Yep, lots of chrome.
Yep.
Like I said, we'll go through all the stuff that you got to change on 12-volt conversion later. Let's say it's an older restoration. Got a really nice interior. Somebody did a nice job. The original interior was dark gray. Deluxe cloth is what the book said. So this is kind of got a velour feel to it, but it's pretty nice. They did a nice job on the dash. There's a beautiful clock in the glove box door. Really neat. Radio with the little bit of a waterfall effect. It's the heater down low. The switches are laying in the floor. Not sure if the core is good. We got to figure out what all is there and what it needs.
Looks like there's rust in the carpet, so it may have leaked.
Oh yeah, I do see that now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a weekend parade vehicle, so if the heater's core is messed up, we'll probably just not use it. Probably just unhook it and go straight across.
This is Texas.
Yeah. Everything's been redone. Cool little, the vent window, you pull it out just a little bit and slide that little spear back. That's a little bit sticky, but
It's been setting a day or two. Well, let's not break one.
yeah, I'm not going to force it, but
Till we get it lubed up.
yeah. That kind of window. The chrome's in decent shape. It's got some spots on it. Some of that'll clean up. Really nice rear. Everything's nice. Got the robe handle. You put a blanket over there in case your back seat passengers get cold. They pull the blanket out.
That's what that's for.
Yeah, it's not a no shit handle like a lot of people think. And then one of the neat features on this, it's all dirty.
Yeah, grab a rag there. Scrub.
Kind of see through it a little bit. There's a little handle here. You can see my hands. You have a glare there?
Yeah, I got it. Go ahead.
Okay. And it goes back, and the window slides back. Just enough room. It was probably made for smokers, but it'll get a little fresh air in here. I'm sure there's a vent up front, and then comes back forward. Neutral position, the window's actually locked. We tried to open it earlier, so you can't just pry it back. There's a little lock section there. And you can do smaller little cracks and it'll still click into place. So very neat. My first time of seeing one like that. And it's pretty cool. Trims all here. The headliner's wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, whoever did the interior did a really nice job on it.
I love that sound.
Yep. All the doors closed good, good body lines. The trunk's even been finished out. It's had got some stuff in it, but extra parts both for this car and other. This was already falling down, but you can see the back of the seat's been redone. It's got new foam in it. No rat infestation back here, so all that's good. We'll lay this back up there and get it attached somehow. Looks like there's a little clip up there in the corner that it needs to snap in somehow.
Yeah.
No spare tire, but it's here. The well is even not rusted out. They always rust out right here. So, got a cover made for it with the same material from the trunk. Main problem with the trunk is that the latch is not installed. We have part of it. Where'd it go? Here. We have the outer part. We have a key that moves this little pin back and forth, but we don't have the lock retainer mechanism here, and we don't have you can see that this is squared off. I was going to say keyed, but it's not.
Flat-sided?
Yeah, flat-sided, like a double D, so there would have been an arm that it swings around and catches this. And so we may have to fabricate that if we can't find it and get it where they can at least shut the trunk, but they'll be able to lock it too, because the key takes this little pin and just moves it to the other side. So one side of the tube's got a hole and the other side's got a slot because it's just a 90-degree mechanism. So I can see how it works, but we just don't have all the pieces yet. But we'll figure that out. Yeah, there was some extra trim, extra wiper blades, extra wiper transmission. And it's going to be hard to see, but this is the squirter. Water comes in here from that jelly jar up there, and there's a tiny little orifice right there in front of my fingernail, and then this opens it up smaller and bigger so you can get more water in or out.
Neat little feature.
Yeah. Cool little thing. There were a couple of gauges, extra parts. That's the hood latch plate, which it's got a good one. These are some plates for door trim, weather stripping stuff, just extras. That's a little brace, probably for the air cleaner, which we don't have.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
These are the bearings and timing chain parts that we found. Pretty recognizable, but different all the same. You can see the teeth are wide. You know, it's not really a double roller chain, but it's still big. Very heavy duty, and I mean, I looked at the bearings the other day. There's a little bit of wear here and there, but for the most part, they're good.
These are 10,000.
10,000 under, yeah. So there was a little bit of, so this is our evidence that the engine's been rebuilt. We just don't know when.
Yeah.
Or at least time and chain bottom end done. They may not have taken the pistons out of the bores. They may have done it in the car redo, which I've heard of.
Yeah, it wasn't uncommon.
Yeah, so So the back end of the car, we kind of got the table in the way, but it's got pretty standard 40s and 50s trunk latch. When you raise it up, the little pin comes up. When you raise it back up just about an inch, this will retract again and you can shut it. Small little tail lights, no reverse lights, gas door, pretty standard. It's pretty far down in there, but we have no clue what shape that's in. The tube looks okay, but who knows. We are going to get it up in the air because, like I say, we had to do the brakes completely.
It's missing little bumpers.
Yep.
Should have little rubber bumpers right in here. They've got a hole for them.
Yeah,
and
that's pretty easy.
Yeah, we'll come up with something.
GM uses pretty standard rubber bumpers on all that. This side, same as the other side. I don't think we showed you really neat full wheel covers, but I think they're actually two-piece. I think it's a dished piece here and then a hubcap. Hadn't tried to pop them off. Got the Pontiac emblem in there in the middle.
Definitely needs new tires.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows how old these tires are, and they're all flat and they're all cracked.
Yeah.
They are BF Goodrich's.
They're definitely not radial.
Silvertown. No, they're bias ply, and they'll probably buy some. They make bias ply still.
You can get the bias ply look in a radial tire.
Yeah.
But
if they're going to drive it a lot, they may talk them into that.
Yeah.
But you can still get the wide whites. And
Yep.
it looks like this on the side, but it's a radial tire. It's just what you're used to.
Evidence of a squirrel sliding down the window.
Yeah. Maybe a cat. That's pretty small for a cat paw.
Yeah, looks more like a squirrel.
Yep. But yeah, a little bit more of the dash.
Tore up.
Yeah, they've got the gauges out.
Steering wheel's cool though.
Yeah. Hopefully we can make the horn work again. Humongous steering. And then you can see the hydromatic sign. I'm out of reach. Flashlight.
Okay.
So here's the hydromatic. Neutral, drive, low, and reverse. There was no park in the first ones. You were expected to know how to use your parking brake. So, and it's got a little trigger under here. You release it. And I worked it the other day, and you can hear the cables underneath working, so hopefully they're not too froze up. We can work them, make them work too. All kinds of neat Bakelite knobs. Uh-oh, we're missing this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why it wouldn't work. It's not a flip, it's a crank.
Ah, yeah.
That's what I was doing wrong over there.
That's it. You get a demerit for the day.
Yep. So this was, because it was the deluxe version, it was a pretty nice car. You know, you could buy a base model Pontiac. If you bought the upper level Pontiac, you were nearly to a Buick, and then past the Buick it was a Cadillac. So weren't quite the Cadillac level, but you were solid middle class if you were driving this Pontiac.
Cool old car. And they say 4 doors aren't cool.
Yeah, this one works.
I'd drive it. I'd change the color, but that's me.
One good shot with trunk closed.
Yeah.
You can kind of see there's just a little bit of a dip here, which is the torpedo style.
Yeah.
Just here on the streamliner. What did they call it? Yeah, the other one, I think it was streamliner. But the slope would have probably started up about here. And so it would have been one smooth deal. The trunk opened up different. The whole back end was just one smooth curve all the way down. It didn't have the hump here and the hump here.
I kind of like the hump.
Yeah,